Friday Rugby Preview with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview, looking at the Borders clubs in action tomorrow. Robin Purdie with me again, and we're deep into the business end of the season, particularly for National 1 clubs, with some teams just one game to play in the league. And of course this weekend was supposed to be a free weekend, but because of the weather we've got a full Premiership programme. So let's start with a look back at last weekend and chew over the games that were played. And Robin, some interesting results. First of all, the Friday night, Currie 49, Musselburgh 0, and it's one of those where you look on the paper and you see a big score like that and you think, well, that was a total walkover. But when you hear from Currie and when you hear from Musselburgh in particular, they were actually pleased at the way they played, and they always get stuck in, as we know, but sometimes the scoreline doesn't quite reflect.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen bits and bobs as well saying that Musselburgh had given Currie a real good go, but yeah, the scoreline doesn't lie as well. You know, it must have to some extent have been a fairly routine victory. But you know, that's to be expected. Currie are a very good team with a very, very strong and deep squad, and Musselburgh have struggled this season, and they're without several key personnel, Badenhorst, etc. So yeah, Currie did what they need to do there, and they got the 5 points that they require in their quest for fourth.
In Accies 17, Kelso 36, that was the one we were bigging up last week. It really was important for both teams. Massive win for Kelso there, 5 points.
Absolutely huge win for Kelso. That, you know, not saying it was a playoff for who goes down, but it'll go a long way to deciding it, that's for sure. And yeah, that's an absolutely brilliant win up there by Kelso. Really, really puts a marker down for the remainder of the season. They've got tough games to come, of course, particularly away from home, but yeah, that's Accies right in it now, and they need a win from somewhere, and they need more than one win.
Heriot's 22, Selkirk 14. So Selkirk got to within 8 points there. Almost got closer. Callum Anderson's penalty was very, very close. In fact, he was even quoted as saying that had the post been a little bit bigger, then it might have proved that he did actually score it. But to go to Heriots, who are absolutely flying at the moment, and get to within 8 points of them was a great achievement.
Yeah, not only that, Stuart, is they've kept Heriots to 22 points as well. Now, that's not been done that many times this season, particularly at Golden Acres, so it's disappointing, I suppose, that they never got anything from the game, but I think that's a great credit to Selkirk to be sat here and said that. You know, if you'd said at the start of the season that Selkirk would go to Heriots with designs on getting something, then, you know, you've got long odds on it, and not a confidence-denting result that for me for Selkirk. They've got a tough run in, particularly compared to Currie, but I think they can take a lot of heart from that game, Stuart.
The other matches were Marr 12, Watsonians 28, Hawick 36, Glasgow Hawks 22, and Melrose 15, Ayr 52. That was a game that you were at. Talking about the Hawick one, first of all, I mean, that was very nip and tuck all the way, and then Hawick did what they've done before with an Andrew Mitchell hat-trick in the end, pulled away in the last 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, he's some player, Mitchell, still in this division where it's stepped up a level this season. That's him into the teens now in terms of tries. He's a machine in that regard, and yeah, that's a really good win that for Hawick. Glasgow Hawks decent this season, and Hawick down to bare bones. I thought Glasgow Hawks might have just sneaked that one by virtue of the fact that, you know, Hawick's injury worries, and I think that's a brilliant result for Hawick, and they can look forward now. Likewise, Watsonians, I called that a banana skin against what I assume was a desperate Marr team over at Fullerton. Never easy. Watsonians, you know, they're the third force this season. They're not in the league of Ayr and Heriots for me, so I thought that might have been tricky, but they've obviously made pretty light work of it, and I think that's a really good result for them. And yeah, you're right, I was at Melrose v Ayr. Melrose vastly under strength. A few boys with knocks that some might say understandably thought, well, we'll keep them out of this game for the games that lie ahead. And men against boys, big men, a lot of big men. You know, you can't argue with physics. At the end of the day, a good big one will always beat a good little one.
Well, let's have a look at the Premiership table then, and it looks very, very familiar, doesn't it? Ayr 81, Heriots 80, then a 19-point gap to Watsonians on 61, and then a 12-point gap to Currie on 49. Selkirk didn't get anything out of the game against Heriots, but they're still only 2 points behind Currie. They have 47. Gap of 7 then to Hawick on 40, Melrose on 40. Hawick have that game in hand though. Glasgow Hawks 36, Kelso 35, and then we go into the relegation zone, which now has Edinburgh Accies in 10th place, 28 points, Marr 20 and Musselburgh 14.
The top two march on. Watsonians, they've always looked like they were going to get that third place, and there's the battle on, of course, between Currie and Selkirk. And if Hawick win, I don't think so, Stuart. Actually, Hawick, it's a long way into the playoffs for Hawick. I think that's going to come down now to Currie and Selkirk. But yeah, Hawick comfortable in mid-table as it stands. A few others, Melrose, Hawks, and there's the battle at the bottom, and there's daylight now between Kelso, fourth bottom, Edinburgh Accies. Third bottom, Marr and Musselburgh's goose looks to be cooked for me, unfortunately for them. And yeah, that looks like a straight shootout between Kelso and Edinburgh Accies. Glasgow Hawks are in and around it, but they've got a game in hand.
Well, let's have a look at what's happening tomorrow then. And the Currie-Kelso game has, in the 11th hour, been switched from 3 o'clock to 2 o'clock now, which is understandable because of the Scotland-England International at Twickenham. But Currie 4th, Kelso 9th. Obviously, Currie will be hot favourites. Kelso with a spring in their step, though, after last weekend's win at Raeburn Place. Here's Director of Rugby at Kelso, Neil Hinnigan.
This will be a really tough assignment. Currie's home record is phenomenal, really. They beat Ayr at home this season. They beat most teams there, so it's going to be a hard match. But we're on a bit of a momentum swing ourselves at the moment. Last week we posted a good 5 points away from home, and the second half performance was really good. If we can build on that second half performance, keep it up for an 80-minute performance on Saturday, then hopefully we can come away with something. I mean, anything would be vital at this stage of the season. If we can get something up there, it would certainly help our cause to stay in this league for another season. So yeah, it's a vital, important match. We've got to look forward to it as well as a challenge, as a group of players. Keith Melbourne's unfortunately unavailable. Jack Paterson has been rested by the Scotland under-18s set-up. He's got a match in a few weeks' time, so he's been withdrawn. Alex Orr is unavailable. Along with that, Angus McGregor still missing. So in comes Andrew Sweeney in the second row, and Nick Barnes moves out to the back row, with Isaac Coates coming out the bench, who's released by Edinburgh, with Max Cranston, who could be covering the back row from the bench as well. So that's the changes. Everyone else is much the same from last week.
So, as he said there, if they get anything out of this game, that will be a bonus. And there's that argument that we talked about last week as well, isn't it, about do you actually put your full-strength team out against the likes of Currie when you've got bigger fish to fry later on in the season?
Oh, it's a tricky one, Stuart. I certainly agree that it's a tough assignment. There's no two ways about that. And yeah, anything they come away with, Kelso there, is a bonus. They've got more important games than Currie away in their quest for survival. But yeah, free hit, if they can get anything, then it's a huge boost. A real blow to hear that Melbourne's out, though. That is a blow. He's a big old lump of a boy, and you're going to somewhere like Millennium, you need all the big lumps. You can get Jack Paterson as well, arguably Kelso's player of the season.
Kelso obviously could struggle to get points there, which means that Edinburgh Accies against Marr becomes incredibly important, because Edinburgh Accies are 7 points behind. They could actually reduce that back to 2 with a win against Marr. It's 10th against 11th. Marr, with 2 games in hand on Accies, could also catch them up. So lots at stake here.
Oh, must win for them both. It's as simple as that. 5 points, arguably, for whoever wins is almost a must, and it's going to be a cracker. That two teams desperate for the victory, and I see Accies coming through that one, Stuart, and that will mean, yes, that for me, you're right, they've got 2 games in hand, Marr, but that will probably be enough to seal Marr's fate, unfortunately.
And as some people used to say, we'd rather have points in the bank rather than chase them.
That's it. That's it. That 100% agree with it.
Yeah, big psychological thing there. OK, let's come to a little match now in Premiership. Heriots against Ayr. We've been waiting all season for this, and it's finally happened. First against second. Ayr 81, Heriots 80, both battling to avoid Watsonians in the home semi-final and take on either Currie, Selkirk or possibly Hawick, it would seem at this stage. Thoughts on this?
Thoughts are I've picked a bad weekend to be unavailable. That's my thoughts.
You'd have loved to be in a Golden Acre.
Quite happily, I've gone to Golden Acre tomorrow. It's going to be a brilliant matchup. It's a Super Rugby fixture all over. Both teams littered with Super Rugby experience. The Heriots, we've said they've popped along. They've gone about their business. We've probably given Ayr more plaudits, but you could put a bookie slip between them at the top of the table. 2 big games between them coming up. It's not going to determine who gets home semi-finals. It's going to determine, let's be honest, who gets a home final. So yeah, it's 2 playoff games essentially. Because it's at Golden Acre, it's really tough to call. But I was super impressed by Ayr last week. First time I've seen them flash this season. Even though they left a lot out there, they made a few errors. They'll have had plenty of work on this week. Their coach is a perfectionist. Grant, I could sit and chat to him about rugby all afternoon, no problem at all. So yeah, it's just going to be an absolute firecracker there tomorrow. And if Ayr come through and win, then they are just about nailed on for that top spot. But if Heriot's come through, then all eyes head to Melrose when they play each other in a few weeks' time.
And of course both teams are unbeaten at home so far, because the only defeat for Ayr was away at Currie, and the only defeat for Heriot's was away at Marrside at Watsonians, when Watsonians absolutely came out the blocks flying.
Oh yeah, they blew Heriot's away in the first half. And yeah, it's just going to be some big men trading blows effectively. That Ayr squad, they look like they all live inside a gym, let alone visit a gym on a wee. And I think that's a big difference between them and Heriot's and some of the other teams. To be honest, they're coming in out of Super 6, and they seem to have kept up that ethos, if you like, of doing things semi-professionally. They rotated a few on Saturday, but you seen them come out the tunnel and you thought, oh my word, I don't fancy being out there against this lot. Blair McPherson, Sweeney in the back row, big Shedden, 6'4" and 16, 17 stone, can run like the wind. They're a fearsome proposition, but if any team in the league have got the tools to deal with it, then it's Heriot.
Musselburgh against Selkirk is next up, also a 2 o'clock kick-off. Selkirk disappointed at being just 1 point away from getting a bonus point at Heriot's, which shows how far they've come this season. Let's hear from their coach, Sesh Henderson.
Speaking to the players on Tuesday night, they were really disappointed for the effort they put in up at Heriot's at the weekend. They came away with no points. We really dug deep, and we're pretty pleased overall their performance against a top side, and if we're just taking another couple of opportunities, it might have been different, but it wasn't. So we're hurting really badly that we got beat, because winning 5 games on the bounce and getting beat, the boys were disappointed, and I'm happy with that, because we'll need to go into this week's game with the mindset of this is the biggest game of the season, and if we want to try and stay on the tails of Currie and getting a playoff position, well, these are must-win games. That's just one thing, but how we're going to win it is totally different, and we need to have that mindset of go out there and we have to work really hard against Musselburgh. I've watched the last 2 games against Heriot's and Currie, and they've got a settled side just now, and what's happening now is that they're making you work hard, extremely hard for every inch of the park, and they're really good line speed, make their tackles, and give them space. They've got threat, especially in the back 3. So we need to get there with our game plan, get out there, work really hard, execute it, and take our opportunities to score when they come along. It's just because they're bottom, it's just not going to happen, and we just need to make sure that we go up there and come away with points, so we stay close to Currie for the following week when we, as you know, we've got Currie at home. So team-wise, Brodie Allen will start at 12. Mark Bennett was really good for us last week, but he's not released for this week. And the forwards, look, we're just got a couple of injuries for last week, so we'll just have a look at the physio tonight and see who can make it, who can't make it, and we'll make changes from there. But pretty much a settled side. Maybe there's a couple of changes overall.
Interesting stuff from Sesh Henderson, but real credit to Selkirk.
They've been great. You'd have had them down at the start of the season purely based on last season as one of the 3 to go down. Let's be honest, and they've never really been in any jeopardy at all, and they're vying for that playoff place. That we've spoken so often about the recruitment. The recruitment was sensational, quite frankly. They have been devoid of injuries thus far. That's really
a big thing, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. They've used by far and away the least amount of players in the Premiership, and I've spoken so often before about when you're riding high, or you're in a good place, or you're on the crest of a wave, then the niggles become a wee bit less, and people want to play maybe through the pain barrier a wee bit, and and that kind of stuff. So yeah, they've been brilliant this season. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching them the times that I've seen them. But Sesh's absolutely right. They're not just going to go to Stonyhill tomorrow and it's just going to, they're going to turn up and it's going to happen. But they don't strike me as being that type of squad. They've got a bit of semi-professionalism about them, and not just the players that have come in as well, the Callum Andersons, etc. You'd fancy them to come away with the spoils there tomorrow. I mean, they have to come away with the spoils if they're going to maintain a charge for fourth. They've got Musselburgh to play twice in the last few weeks, and you fancy, given who else they play, that they need to kind of get 10 points from Musselburgh. So, but yeah, they're not going to just turn up and it'll happen, but I don't think that'll be their mindset, to be honest. And Musselburgh will keep plugging away to the absolute bitter end as they always do. But yeah, it's going to be National 1 for them next season, unfortunately, and I mean that because they give their all.
Well, Currie and Selkirk and Hawick have played 16, which means they've got 6 games left, of course, potentially 30 points on the table. And looking at Selkirk's run in there, obviously Musselburgh this week, they've got Currie at home, which I think you have to go down to make sure they get some points there, because you haven't seen them lose yet. So Currie at home, they've got Watsonians away, which will be tough, Musselburgh at home, and then Ayr away. But by which time, I mean, we're talking 29th of March, you see, Ayr will have no doubt got their home match in the semi-final of the playoffs, and again there's an argument that they could well rest some of their bigger players. And then there's Glasgow Hawks away for Selkirk at the end. In contrast to that, you've got Currie, who have got obviously Selkirk away from home, Glasgow Hawks at home, Kelso away, Hawick away, and Marr away. So 3 teams in the bottom half, all away though, but all winnable from a Currie perspective as well, who will be searching for that 4th spot.
Yeah, that's right. And when I look at those fixtures, Stuart, it makes me think that Selkirk tomorrow need a win. They probably need to beat Currie at home. Next week they need to beat Musselburgh at home, which I think they will, and they probably need to go last game of the season, rearranged game, and beat Glasgow Hawks away. I think if they can win those 4 games, they'll be in with a brilliant shout, because I can see, like you, I can see Currie winning the majority of the rest of their games unless they come unstuck at Selkirk and potentially at Kelso.
Watsonians against Glasgow Hawks, and that's 3rd against 8th.
Yeah, Hawks have been better again, a bit like Selkirk. Hawks have been better than a lot of people thought they might have been because of how they fared last season, and they always have such a high turnover of players every summer, and we always speak about how much of a nightmare it must be for Andy Hill, and therefore what a good job he does season in, season out. But yeah, on the back of Watsonians' fine win through at Marr last week, it's hard to see anything other than the home win there.
And so to the final match in the Premiership, and it's a local derby, Hawick against Melrose. Another week, another derby, both teams on 40 points. Hawick with a game in hand on Melrose. We'll hear from Scott Wight of Melrose in a second, but first the words of Hawick head coach, and that's Graeme Hogg.
The big thing for us this week is backing up our second half performance that we done last week. So obviously getting that bonus point in the end was massive for us, especially second half last week. We felt we really put into place the plans that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks, even with the personnel that we ended up on the field with. I think that's been made quite a big thing this week in terms of how bare bones we are as a squad at present, but every single player who played their part last Saturday done themselves and done the club proud. And there was no lack of skill in there, no lack of ambition. I think we always speak about pride in the jersey, playing for Hawick, but it takes so much more than that. So when these boys came on, your Corbin Cummins, your Grant Huggin, who's obviously played, I think he's nearly played 100 games for Hawick, but I very much doubt he's played any in the back row. We were massively happy with these boys and how they went about their business. And as I say, this week it's all about backing that up. I think only on one occasion this season we've had back-to-back wins, and that's really what we're striving for this week against a Melrose team who will cause us different problems to what Glasgow Hawks done. There's some trends in Melrose games that we've had a look at. We've worked hard, as we always do this week, in terms of looking at what they've done. Boys have done their own analysis. Yeah, we're looking forward to, as I say, another Borders derby at Mansfield Park, and hopefully we come away with the same result as last week.
I think we're fairly positive performance last week, albeit the scoreline wouldn't I suggest that, but I think, as a coaching team and as a playing group, we set out with a real intent to try and score 4 tries against there. Which I thought some of our attacking rugby was excellent on Saturday. But, probably more interest with what we actually done without the ball, albeit still conceded 50 points. But Ayr a well-oiled machine with threats across the pitch. But look, I thought we done really well. I think, loads of positives to take out of that performance. Probably more than Kelso and Hawks from the previous 2 weeks. Boys are really looking forward to going across to Hawick. Border Derby, we've not played them this year, both locked on 40 points. So, look, it's teed up to be a great game. And look, one that the boys and coaching staff in the club are really looking forward to going across to Mansfield Park. Welcome back Al Ferry and Angus Runciman this week, which is a huge plus for us. Zen is away out to international duty this week, so he'll still be unavailable. But other than that, everyone else is fit. We just need to finalise what selection looks like. And then I get boys fired up and ready to go at Mansfield Park.
So bragging rights, of course, at stake at Mansfield Park, and whoever wins that game will actually be in 6th place at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the table will be looking a whole lot brighter for them both. Similar type teams this season, Stuart, for me. Melrose will need to contain Mitchell, whereas Hawick will need to contain Ferry. So they've both almost got a kind of a wrecking ball stroke superstar in the ranks, and both are probably, by their own admission, would say they've got a bit less bulk than some of the other teams. Never was that more apparent from Melrose point of view, albeit they were missing Ferry and Zen and Runciman against Ayr last weekend. So similar makeups to the squad, both being fairly beset by injuries this season, so it's a tough one to call. They've both got each other to play twice, and I fancy 2 home wins there, to be honest, and that alone will make both of them safe. I don't think any of them are in any sort of real danger anyway, Stuart, to be honest. But yeah, I've mentioned plenty of times about Hawick being in recent times down to the last of what they've got available, and Melrose, Ferry and Runciman coming in tomorrow. They won't have Zen, but last weekend it was never more apparent. There's just how almost reliant they are on these 3 players, and Ferry and Runciman will make a big difference to them when they come back tomorrow. I think it's one of them for some of the teams, Stuart. This particular season, it's been much more apparent who does what off the field or off the training field and inside in the gym, because I know there are some players in some clubs that never see the inside of a gym, and it's a tough one for clubs because some boys just want to come down on a Tuesday and Thursday, and sometimes not even on a Tuesday or Thursday, all weeks, and have a run about with their mates on a Saturday, and that's fine. But also, this is the Premiership now, and it's got the Super Rugby players back in it, and some of the teams are full of big men, and do you want to survive, particularly next season when there's not 10 points to be had from the likes of Musselburgh and the likes of Marr potentially and the likes of Edinburgh, Accies, etc. There's maybe 20 odd 30 points there when you play those teams that get relegated, and GHA ain't coming up to make up the numbers. So it's almost a case of, what do you want? Do you want to survive, or do you want to thrive in the Premiership, the 10 team Prem next season? And there's some teams with big men, and there's some teams that don't have as big a man, and these 2 teams tomorrow are just 2 of those teams that it'll maybe give them more to think about next season than it did this season.
So Hawick against Melrose, we've got Ewan Welsh and Ian Hurd looking after that one, so they'll be down there with sort of the last part of the second half will be commentated on. At Heriot's, it will be David Ferguson and Sam Matthews looking after that one, and we're on air at 1:30 for a change, so 1:30 until 4:45 when, of course, the Calcutta Cup will kick off. So let's go on to National 1, shall we? Last week's results: Biggar 48, Dundee 24, Boroughmuir 41, Jed Forest 26, Glasgow Accies 24, Peebles 25, Gala 14, GHA 27, and Stirling County 79, Highland 7. A few talking points there. Obviously, Biggar beating Dundee was par for the course. Boroughmuir getting back-to-back wins against Jed Forest and keep their hopes alive of staying in National 1.
Yeah, that's a brilliant win, that, for Boroughmuir against the Jed. Boroughmuir with everything to play for there, Jed with not a lot to play for, and that's the Jed's credit. They've never been dragged into it. But yeah, Boroughmuir 5 points there, and it's watch coming down the track, Peebles, Boroughmuir, Peebles v Highland, etc. That was a huge result for the men from Meggetland in the context of their season. And Peebles result of the weekend. You could say Kelso at Edinburgh Accies, but Peebles then result of the weekend v Glasgow Accies.
Yeah, away from home as well. And they've done very well against like the GHAs and the big teams. Not so well. I mean, losing at Dundee, obviously they could look back on that one and think, well, what could have been? Well, it's now in their hands that they can actually do something about it. But they've literally got to go to Boroughmuir and Highland and win both games to be absolutely 100% secure.
Yeah, it's a huge 2 games for Peebles. We have to be realistic and say they were the promoted team this season, so it was always going to be tricky for them. They were always potentially going to be there or there, or it wasn't going to be unusual for them to be in the mix for getting dragged into it. But what a great win that was, because it now needed to be, based on Jed not doing Peebles any favours and Boroughmuir getting 5 points there. So yeah, monumental game, absolutely monumental game at Boroughmuir tomorrow. And if Peebles win that, then if they get 5 points, you'll know more about the maths than me, but they're just about home and hosed, I would say.
Yes, I'll go into the maths very, very shortly.
Okay.
I've got my calculator out, but before we do, Stirling 79, Highland 7. Now, probably looking from the outside in without any knowledge at all of the goings on at Canal Park, but looking at that result, you would think Highland must be saving their best players for the last 2 games and targeting 10 points. Obviously a win at Dundee and a win at home against Peebles, which would obviously give them the 10 points. But of course I don't suppose they were expecting Peebles to get much out of Glasgow Accies result.
Yeah, it's almost a bit of a guessing game at this time of year. If they have, and I have no idea, but if we rest a few against Stirling, then we've got the boys back for these 2 winnable games, and we'll assume that Peebles lose at Glasgow. What? Oh, hang on. Peebles have won at Glasgow Accies. Oh no!
Yes.
But no, I think Highland could have went down to Stirling full boona, and they still probably wouldn't have come away with all that much. Stirling need the 5 points. They needed the 5 points, and they got the 5 points. So yeah, it's all happening at the bottle. That the shipping 79 points is not ideal, but it doesn't really make any difference in the grand scheme of things as far as Highland are concerned.
Okay, mathematics time then. In that case, Biggar against Stirling County, of course, is the first of the 3 games in that league. Biggar need 1 point to be absolutely safe. Now, the only way they can be relegated now is if Peebles get a 5-point win against Highland, Boroughmuir get a 5-point win against Biggar, and Peebles and Boroughmuir have a high-scoring draw, with Dundee getting nothing against Stirling or Boroughmuir. That would make both Boroughmuir and Peebles safe, but you'd probably get about 500 to 1 at least at the bookies for that.
At least. Minimally 500 to 1. Biggar have done enough. I think they're going to be fine. It's going to all come, so much of it's going to come down to tomorrow at Maggotland. So if Peebles get 5 tomorrow, they're up to 39. It depends if Boroughmuir then get 1 or 2 maybe.
Boroughmuir, Highland and Peebles, they're going to be taking points off each other in some kind of format.
Yeah, they are.
Which means that's going to help Biggar. But of course, it's that docking of 1 point has made things unnecessarily uncomfortable for Biggar at the end of the season.
They would have been out of it if it wasn't for that. So yeah, but I think they'll be fine, and yeah, we'll know an awful lot more come 5 p.m. tomorrow.
So Biggar play Stirling. I mean, Stirling have to win it, obviously, but we all know that GHA only need 1 point now against Dundee next week, and they're promoted. But Stirling have to keep on winning, which, it's not going to be easy at Hartrees.
No, it's not. It never is at Hartrees. Stirling, you fancy them to have enough, but you're right, Stuart. It's academic in the real world, not the mathematical world. The real world, it's going to be academic.
So Boroughmuir against Peebles, then big game for both clubs. It's not the end of the world for the team that loses, but whoever wins goes into the final game of the season with the fate totally in their own hands. Let's hear from Peebles head coach Graeme Paterson.
So obviously we were delighted with the result last Saturday against Glasgow Accies. It was a fantastic step forward for us in our quest to remain in this league. It gave us a bit of not quite breathing space, but certainly it's kept our noses in front in that sort of 3-horse race for one place with Highland and Boroughmuir. And the result was built on a bit of homework. We have obviously played Accies once. We've looked at a few of their videos. We can see how they want to play, and the fact that they don't kick very much. They try to run a lot, a lot of offloading. Play very well in terms of that as well. So it was getting a defensive system and our mindset right to how to combat that, and the guys delivered it. There's no doubt about that. They bought into it, and it really gave us that platform to then go and stop them playing, but then give us a chance to recover the ball and put our game onto them. I thought we held onto the ball pretty well when we did get it. It was a good possession game, and that was the key to it as well, was playing a bit of a possession game and really forcing their hand in terms of defensive sets, physical carries, using the width, and that's what we did. And a lot of it came down to desire. Who wanted it most? We said to them before the game that was going to be the 1% in this game, was the mindset and who wants it more. Subconsciously, Accies had nothing to play for really. I know it was a big game for their captain was retiring. However, when you've got 20 guys there all fighting for their club, it's a big force, to contend with, and that's what we had. Parts of it didn't go right. There was some mistakes, and to be fair, Accies came right back in it in the second half and really, closed that gap. But the resilience and the mindset of our guys to just go back out again, create that gap, and finish off the game was fantastic, and it fully deserved, and they said that as well. Their coaches absolutely said it was the best team won. But now we go again. This week against Boroughmuir will be pretty similar, I would suggest. They play in a similar kind of way, which is good in terms of, we're prepared for one game. Now we're going for another one, which is in a similar sort of vein. They're attacking intent, dangerous runners, which we need to close down. And that's what we'll be going out to do again, is just closing down their opportunities defensively and looking to really hurt them when we have the ball and be a bit more clinical, or as clinical as we possibly can, and take these points. So it's a really key game in terms of the relegation battle. We've got Boroughmuir this week and Highland the following week, so you can't get, if you like, a better finish in terms of, for people watching, or people kind of seeing the play out of the end of the league, than that, when you have the three teams who are vying for that one spot, all playing each other in the last 2 weeks. So the fixtures have fell in terms of that way. But the guys are really looking forward to it. We've got the confidence with 2 back-to-back wins, and now we're looking to just push on. I think, the mindset is, if we can beat Boroughmuir on Saturday, that kind of takes them out of the equation, and then we move on to the last game against Highland. So we know what's ahead of ourselves. We know what we need to do. It is effectively knockout rugby from now until the end of the season, so there's no holding back. A couple of selection dilemmas, a wee bit, a couple of injury sort of niggles to look at, but as you would expect off the back of that performance against Glasgow Accies, no real changes. The starting pack will remain the starting pack. Lewis Copeland will come onto the bench for Andy Duncan in the forwards. The other forwards replacements will remain the same. In the backs, it'll be the same starting backs as well, and the only change in the replacements will be James Hodgkiss comes into the squad for Rio Batia. There's a few discussions around about, do we change things, but ultimately we've said the guys that have gone out and performed against Accies, they go out and do that same job again on Saturday, and then hopefully we'll get the same result.
So talking about going down to the wire.
Oh, definitely. It's going to be so interesting to see what happens in these coming games at the bottom of this division. It's just because they all essentially can take points off each other, as you said before. It's just too hard to call, to be honest.
Dundee are home to Highland, of course, and we'll certainly find out if that 79-7 defeat for Highland at Stirling was just a one-off, or whether they really do have injury problems. Remember, Boroughmuir beat them quite convincingly at Meggetland as well, and they certainly would have put out their strongest team at that particular fixture. So this one could actually answer a lot of questions, because a lot of people still think that Highland will get 10 points from the last two and end up with 40.
Yeah, I think the fixtures certainly fall in their favour. Dundee already relegated, nothing to play for. There's 5 points on the table there if they can go get them, and then they've got that home game, last game against a fellow rival in terms of maintaining the place in the division, Peebles at home. and we know what it's like to go up there. It's a brilliant place to go to watch rugby. Not sure if I'd fancy it last day of the season in a relegation decider, because it's partisan.
It certainly is, yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah, we like that. We like a bit of partisan.
No problem with that. But it's partisan up there, and it'll be raucous. And yeah, I mean, whoever, if it comes down to that game, specifically that game, whoever wins that and comes out of it will have deserved it.
National 2 then, let's go on to there. The results were Lasswade 29, Preston Lodge 14, Newton Stewart 16, Stewmel 27, GHK 33, Kirkcaldy 34 and Gordonians 52, Falkirk 15. It was a week off for Berwick last week. Lasswade winning helped them with 6 points now between them and Preston Lodge, 2 going down in this division, and Newton Stewart really struggling at the bottom. So interesting as well, because the GHK Kirkcaldy match ended 33-34. Kirkcaldy were way ahead, 27 points to 5, and GHK came back and then led Kirkcaldy, and then Kirkcaldy, it was almost as if they were saying, try and catch us if you can, because we've got something left in the tank and we're going to beat you at the end, and they did.
Yeah, fair play to them. That sounds like it's been a real ding dong. We've seen the scores as they were coming in on Saturday there, and yeah, it's a really good win that for Kirkcaldy on the road. But yeah, you mentioned Lasswade v Preston Lodge. That's a result that's helped Berwick, as was the Newton Stewart, unfortunately for them, going down at home to Stewmel. Berwick have not played last weekend and they've not really lost any ground. That's massive at this time of the season.
Gordonians will play Preston Lodge, so we've got top against second bottom. Gordonians edging closer to promotion. They can't do it this weekend, but certainly they're the bookies' favourite, let's say, to be promoted to National 1 and put Aberdeenshire Rugby back on the map again in those divisions. GHK against Stuart's Melville, that's a 2:30 kick-off, 5th against 2nd. Berwick against Falkirk, 6th against 4th, but as I mentioned earlier, Falkirk losing heavily, 52-12 at Gordonians. They've nothing really to play for, but for Berwick, plenty to play for. Let's hear what Paul Pringle has to say.
So coming off the back of another hard-fought win at home, we had a really good result, and one that was really important for us at home to GHK, where we managed to bag the 5 points pretty much with the last play of the game. The game itself was a pretty tight affair. GHK are a really strong team, strong in the backs and defensively. Forwards fronted up magnificent, to be honest. We dominated scrums and just generally around the paddock, and it really set a great platform for our backs, who we know throughout the season how dangerous they've been. Jordan Paterson's not available this week for the home game against Falkirk. Jock Williamson will just move across into prop there, and Ryan Wilson will go up into the front row. The second row will remain largely unchanged. In the back row, we've got we're really fortunate. Ali will go in number 8 after his man of the match performance against GHK, and then we'll bring in his brother James Grieve, who came off the bench in that game and was brilliant. He'll move into 7, and Mason Emery will continue at 6. So all in all, very happy with that pack. We certainly know that they'll have a tough day against Falkirk, but I do think it's a pack that will give us the mobility around the park we need to counter Falkirk, who like to play a fair bit of rugby and run teams around the park. So in terms of the backs, we're pretty much largely unchanged. Ben Nick will continue on the wing with Jordan Jackson out. Centres of Rory and JT will continue. Falkirk are tough in the backs, there's no doubt about that, but we certainly feel that that's pretty much as close as possible to our strongest back line, so we're pretty confident that we'll certainly give them a game. On the bench, we've got Carl Gullen will continue. Carl played 50 minutes against GHK. He's really coming on this season and finding his own. He's working hard in training, and he is making a real impact when he comes off the bench, so it's great to have him available. Callum Sim and Rafa Kraminski will both be on the bench, so we went 3 forwards this week. And we just feel that, with the kind of the level that we want to be playing at and the kind of pressure that we want to be putting in terms of line speed, etc., that we just need these guys to be able to rotate and keep things fresh within the forwards. And then Adam Hardy is on the bench as the utility back. He didn't get many minutes in the GHK match, made a huge impact when he came off the bench, and we'd certainly be aiming to get him more minutes this weekend. We appreciate it'll be a tough game. The last 2 games we've won at home. We would certainly hope to be targeting this one, and then that leaves us one more home fixture before the end of the season against Preston Lodge, which, all being well, should come down to being a crunch one in terms of who stays up and who goes down. But ex-players day at the club, so we've got over 120 ex-players booked in, I'm led to believe, for lunch beforehand. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be given plenty of tips and pointers, but it'll be great to have a good crowd at Scremerston, and hopefully we give them the result they want to see.
Yeah, which I think will be 5 points, and if they do that, and I think Lasswade probably on course to beat Newton Stewart as well. Newton Stewart 9th against 7th, desperate times for that team. Lasswade targeting 5 points, and the relative safety, I think, for Lasswade and for Berwick if they can get 5 points apiece on that one.
I'm not quite as sure it'll be as straightforward in that. I see Berwick picking up a win. Falkirk have a good player, have they still got Falls, etc. He's a good player. Harry Russell, of course, but of course Harry Russell could be at Twickenham. That might swing things in Berwick's favour. But yeah, it sounds like he's going to get a good day. Ex-players there, like what you said about, there'll be plenty of pointers kicking about. No doubt, no doubt there will be. And yeah. Lasswade over to Newton Stewart won't be easy. Newton Stewart cut adrift at the bottom a wee bit, but they've got a game in hand, and Newton Stewart maybe could just do Berwick a wee favour then.
This is the Friday rugby preview on Rugby Radio. No East League games tomorrow, but an opportunity to hear what's going on down at the Greenyards with the Melrose Sevens, because we're not far away now from the Kings of the Sevens tournament, resuming with the Hawick Sevens and the Berwick Sevens on April the 19th and the 20th respectively. And this year, instead of the traditional ending to the K7s at Jed, Melrose will be the last tournament on May the 24th. So I sat down with Melrose Sevens tournament director Phil Morris. Phil, new date, new look, really, I suppose, because you've got a lot more on, it seems, over the, 3 or 4 days for the new look Melrose Sevens, and of course it's at the end of May.
Yeah, I'm excited about the new date. It's been really well received, both by supporters in terms of ticket sales, very strong, and by the corporate community. It seems to work from the sponsorship perspective. So we've got a lot of exciting sponsors to announce in the coming weeks. The tournament, I guess, doesn't feel very different to me. We have reintroduced the Wednesday night introduction to the visiting teams. In particular, we've got a team from the Waikato in New Zealand, Te Anō coming. So we're looking forward to welcoming those guys on the Wednesday night and giving them a Scottish welcome, some Scottish music and some Scottish food and beverage, which I'm sure they'll enjoy. Thursday, we've got our Hall of Fame, which, again, an exciting inductee this year, so that'll be announced in a week or two. Friday, we have we've got a Merchiston clinic in the morning for lots of the Borders children who want to come and have some coaching with some great coaches. Under 16 tournament for Borders teams on the Friday afternoon, and an under 18 tournament for, again, the Borders teams, which has been a real hit. They like being involved and attached to the Melrose Sevens. They get a chance to be on the big screen, play on the ground, and there's a decent crowd. So I think it's a really nice experience for local players of ambition, etc. So really excited to have that. We have a women in sport dinner on the Friday evening. Again, we had that last year, and that was a big success. And I know the entries have opened for that, and I think they've been overwhelmed with responses already. So Saturday is obviously the main day of the rugby. I think the only real change to that is on the backfields of Annie Road and Battery Dyke. We've got an open under 18 tournament, so we've got teams coming in from out with the area, some coming from as far as London to play, and they'll then get to play their quarterfinals and on the Sunday. Obviously,
and that's new, isn't it? The Sunday.
Yeah. Sunday's new. The reason for that is it's just that the schedule's getting pretty crowded on the Saturday, so we just can't squeeze that in on that day. And again, for the teams coming in from outside the area, it's generally a touring trip. The date change helps for that. We've got a good relationship with Lily Yard's Edge, so that a lot of the teams are staying out there. Gives them a chance to watch the men's and women's rugby on the Saturday afternoon, and then come and show us their stuff on the Greenyards on the Sunday. So I think again, feedback's been strong for that. Hopefully a number of people will be able to come down on the Sunday and see future talent, playing, which will be exciting to watch.
Of course, finding a new date. I mean, obviously, April was getting ridiculous, wasn't it, with the congestion? May, there's not so much congestion as far as rugby's concerned, but of course there's the Jim Clark Rally, there's the Moss Paul Ride Out, there's other events happening as well. But, there's only so many weekends.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not easy. The rugby schedule is very, very crowded. The 12-team Premiership League really didn't give us a choice this year. The last 2 years, even with the 10-team league, we'd had all sorts of cancellations and issues, and it's really hard to organise an event of this stature and have local teams pulling out, with only a matter of days before the event. It puts us in a really difficult position. So we wanted to give ourselves as good a chance to get all the teams here that we want to see here, and teams want to be here, so we want to give them the chance to have that. So we ended up very much with the last bank holiday in May as really the only free date from a rugby perspective. Clearly there are a couple of conflicts with local events here in the Borders, but ultimately we're comfortable to manage around that.
Is this likely to be permanent?
I would say the feedback at this point would say that yes, it is relatively likely. I mean, that's got to be signed off formally, but I think the ticket response has been really strong, and the corporate response has also been really strong. So none of us can guarantee Scottish weather, but hopefully it'll be slightly better, or more likely to be better, at the back of May than it would in sort of the middle of April. So I think most of the factors would say that yes, we're gonna stick with that date. But as I say, that'll be signed off formally after the event.
There's always talk, of course, after the event. They'll put their points across. There'll be negatives. There'll be a lot of positives as well. And you've got to digest all that and decide, what is a relevant thing and what isn't, and how it will fit in with the whole tournament. One of the criticisms, I think, which came over was the difficulty for local teams to progress in the tournament, and you've addressed that to a certain extent.
Yeah, look, I mean, the first thing is you can't please everybody, and yes, this is a tournament of some stature, so there's an awful lot of opinions that go with it and around it here at the club, in and around the Borders. There's never a shortage of people that wish to share their opinion or views with me and with others that help organise it. So, look, we're delighted to listen to everybody and take their views on board, and clearly we want to please as many people as we can. It's not about being deliberately difficult. You're just trying to navigate your way through an awful lot of conflicting demands. So totally understand the desire for local teams and Scottish teams to win the event. Nobody wants to win the event more than the Melrose team here, who kind of very keen to tell me they need to be given a fair chance, etc. At the same time, it is about those clubs bringing their best sides. I think the change of date will help them do that. We have increased the number of Scottish teams this year, so there are 18 Scottish teams and only 6 invitation teams. I know a lot of work's been done by people like Malcolm Changleng, talking to the Scottish clubs to try and encourage them to bring strong sides, and the feedback that we're getting is that, if I take a club like Ayr, who are clearly doing very well in the Premiership at the moment, this date works for them, and they would like to bring a strong side to perform well at the Melrose Sevens 2025, and we're delighted to hear that. Similarly, the likes of Melrose are really keen to put out a team that can put in a really strong performance. The invitation teams, we have tried really hard to get, I guess, what people would term as more club-based, traditional type invitational teams to come. But, people have to accept that the world has changed, and it is very costly for these clubs to come to an event like the Melrose Sevens. Taonawatu, who I mentioned previously, they have been fundraising for literally months, if not a year and beyond, to be able to get their team to come. Now, I have absolutely no idea how strong or not their team will be. And we always have to, accept that some invitational teams want to come, and it's very hard to turn all of them away. So it's about balancing all of these factors. And I think this year, it will be a strong and competitive tournament. As I would always say, the team that wins will be the one that deserves to win, and that boils down to the team that's playing the best sevens rugby.
And it's the final of the K7 series for the very first time at Melrose.
It's going to be interesting to see whether the Kings of the Sevens at that point is still competitive, and if we as the final tournament have people that are trying to win the Kings of the Sevens, with their performance here at the Melrose Sevens, and hopefully that will be the case. If that is the case, we will make a strong sort of scenario in which they can showcase their performance and their talents, and the fact that they've won the Kings of the Sevens. We're very proud to be a big part of the Kings of the Sevens, and I know, having talked to the Melrose boys here, they're very keen to perform well in that again this year. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it may be that by the Melrose Sevens the competition's won, and we can't really do anything about that, but hopefully it is still competitive at that point.
And the holders are Shogun, and they're coming back. And also you've got the previous winners, Monaco Impies, who were very popular last time because they came under the radar, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I think Currie beat Monaco last year.
Yes, he did, yeah.
I think Monaco were a little disappointed.
And that was with Currie playing in the cup final at Hawick.
They were playing
in
the cup final that day, yeah. So, I mean, it does show that anybody can beat anybody in the game of sevens, particularly in a jeopardy tournament like we are. I think Monaco were a little frustrated at going out in the first round, so I suspect they'll be here with a determined effort to get to a later stage this year. But yeah, exciting to see Monaco come back. There is a real desire in Monaco to use sevens to promote the game. I think they see 15s as quite a difficult sport for them to really be successful with, whereas they see sevens as something they can actually have a strong reputation with. And I've no idea what their team will be like this year, but I do know that they as a team and as an area are putting a huge amount of support into the Melrose Sevens, which we're delighted to see.
Well, just finally, I know how hard you work behind the scenes, and your team as well, as of course you've got an extra 5 weeks of this time, haven't you, to put it all together? Yeah. What can possibly go wrong?
Stuart, done nothing now. I've had my feet up since 1st of Jan because I've got a lot more time this year. The harsh reality is the event seems to get bigger each year, and I know the team especially this year, because of some of the corporate demands, that is actually taking up even more effort from what is a group of volunteers. So I think people in the area should be recognising the group behind, not me, but as in all the people that put in a huge amount of effort on behalf of the rugby club. And this funds the rugby club, and I think we should see a very successful tournament this year, which will enable the club to move forward successfully.
Phil Morris, Tournament Director of Melrose Sevens, and lots of interesting stuff that he had to say there. We'll no doubt be returning to him and the Melrose Sevens in due course. But that's it for this edition of the Friday Rugby Preview. We're on air at 1:30 tomorrow, earlier than usual, with commentary on Heriot's v Ayr in the Premiership with David Ferguson and Sam Matthews from Golden Acre. We've also got Ewan Welsh and Ian Hurd at Hawick v Melrose, and Hugh Brown is covering that important National 1 game between Boroughmuir and Peebles. Remember, you can listen to Rugby Radio at rugbyradio.co.uk, and also from the homepage of bordersrugby.net, and our Twitter feed at Borders Scores will bring you all the latest score updates as they happen. But for now, from Robin and myself, a very good night.
The Friday Rugby Preview with Stuart Cameron.